Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1005 just came out, and if you are a Nico Robin fan, then you must have loved this chapter, because this is probably the first major Robin highlight chapter that we've gotten in a long time. Just a full chapter dedicated to showcasing Robin, her big entrance into the action, right? So I definitely enjoyed this chapter because Robin, I won't say now she's still one of my favorite Straw Hats just because she has lacked so much screen time in my opinion throughout most of the New World, but there was definitely a time that Robin was one of my three favorite Straw Hats, three favorite characters in the entire series. So this is a good throwback. I hope we get more focus on Robin in the chapters going forward. Obviously she's set up to get a big fight, tag teaming at least with Brook, so I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But let's start from the top with basically the Sanji and Black Maria scene. I'm sure that there's a lot of different takes on how you felt about this scene, especially if you're a diehard Sanji fan. I maintain that basically this scene was, this whole situation, it wasn't ever meant, like Sanji was never going to really look good in this whole situation. It's Sanji versus a woman. We know how this plays out. We've seen this before. So if you're waiting for Sanji's big moment, I just wouldn't count on it being right now, right? If we go back to Enies Lobby, Sanji and Khalifa, that was kind of Sanji's, those Sanji, not necessarily at his worst, because, at the same time, there is some honor to sticking to your principles, even if the principles are unreasonable. That was brought up and discussed between Sanji and Nami right there, in the Enies Lobby scene. But at the same time, seeing Sanji get beaten by someone he could easily beat, and basically seeming, literally, you could argue he seemed literally washed up with him in his total bubble form and everything like that. And then his big moment was coming through, saving Usopp from Jaibura, getting that big fight, everything like that. And he actually had a really good speech to Usopp when he arrived there, so Sanji actually had a major pivotal role in Usopp's growth in Enies Lobby just in general through his entrance. But enough about that. The point being basically, if you're a Sanji fan who is not happy with how this whole scene played out, I understand. I would still just wait for, when Sanji's actual time to shine comes. Although it does feel like we've been saying that for a while, so I can understand, right? I guess what I would say is that when it feels like Sanji has in general been kind of getting the short end of the stick for a while now, then this just adds, another drop into that already fairly large bucket. But don't worry, Sanji's gonna get something by the end of this arc. I'm pretty sure he's gonna get a good fight. We don't have to worry about that, I don't think. So, regardless, Black Maria's interrogation turned out to be way more brutal than, what we would have expected, because she actually just I thought she was gonna charm or seduce her way to basically getting the information that she wanted, or getting Sanji to do what she wanted, which, that wouldn't have worked. I have enough faith in Sanji to believe that wouldn't have worked. It was clearly not working. But she pulled out the brass knuckles, and she just kind of went to town, and I did not expect that from Black Maria. I think that was a bit jarring for a character that seemed to be such a charming seductress, right? So Sanji actually caves pretty quickly, but not in the sense that it does make him look bad to some characters that don't know him as well. We see those reactions from, for example, the kid pirates and stuff like that. So it does make him look a little bad to characters that don't know him as well, but to characters that do know him, they understand why he's doing it. And from Sanji's perspective, it actually, it's not a bad moment for him. It's actually meant to be played up as, a sign that Sanji has trust in Robin. And that's actually pretty significant because Sanji is very often throughout the series a character that, even if he trusts his comrades and everything like that, he prefers to take greater burdens than he needs to upon himself. We saw that throughout Whole Cake Island, for example. We saw that, from the very start of his character's introduction in the story with Baratie. He does this consistently, you see that in Arlong Park, jumping in for Zoro, you see that in Skypiea, jumping in for Usopp. Sanji's always the guy that swaps in for somebody else. He's always the guy that wants to take the burden off of one of his crewmates and put it on himself. So this was actually, it was arguably a good moment for Sanji in that he chose to basically say, I trust obviously Sanji, he could take a beating till, I don't know, God knows how long, right? We know Sanji could have taken this beating for the rest of the Onigashima fight and just not caved in, but the fact that he caved in wasn't so much him caving in, it was more so basically I trust Robin, I believe that Robin can beat you. He hinted as much in the last chapter with, underestimate Nico Robin at your own peril, if that's the translation that you were unfortunate enough to have to read for the first time. Underestimate Nico Robin at your own peril. But, Sanji clearly has faith in Robin, so this was actually, in my opinion, a good moment for him. It's weird because it's a good moment for him in that it shows the trust in his crew that he has, and specifically in Robin, who we don't often see getting called upon. Like, this isn't the same as him saying, like, I have faith in my captain, Luffy, come help, or he would never say it for Zoro, so that would probably never happen, but... you understand it's like a little different for Robin, and that's the person that he's putting his faith in, because I don't know, we haven't seen Robin in that savior role as much as certain other characters, and I'll get to that in a second. But the point being, basically, I do think it was a good moment for him in the sense that it showed his trust in his crewmates. A bad moment for him in the sense that, in general, it is, the gag is that he looks kind of lame and, I guess, unmanly to a lot of the outside characters, essentially, right? And that's just, like, when you line that up with many other moments that he's been getting so far where he's looked like a little, I don't know, lame or less than himself in the last 100, 200, I don't know how many chapters you want to count it for, then maybe it feels like another, just another typical Sanji tragic situation. But again, holding out hope, he's gonna get some good stuff down the line. This stuff will happen, let's just enjoy the moment for what it is, which is Sanji putting his trust in Robin. So, then Robin arrives and, uses her class... We're gonna see some new techniques from Robin, I'm sure, but she starts off with the basically standard giant hand spank. So we're going to see some new techniques. I'm confident in that, but to me it's just funny that the first thing that she shows up with is basically exactly what I would expect her to show up with, which is just like slapping Giant Maria. Sorry, not Giant Maria. Although Black Maria is pretty giant, but slapping Black Maria with a giant hand. So Robin shows up. Robin is obviously elated that Sanji put his trust in her, even though she is, a significant target her entire life, she's basically been having to run, she's been having to try and evade people, escape from people, but the fact that a crewmate is calling upon her, even though it's dangerous to come help because they trust her, that's a big deal for her character, because now that I think about it, that's something that, this is kind of not a role reversal, really, but, like, it is a new situation for Robin, and it probably is almost... fitting that for so long, even throughout the New World, it's been discussed that, for example, in Zoe, Robin talking about how, I have good friends who can protect me now. She's talked about that pre-time skip, she's talked about that post-time skip and such, but it hasn't come into play as much the fact that, she can come through and actually protect her crewmates and sort of not repay favors. The Strides don't have a favor counter or whatever, but sort of bring that same energy back to them, and that's really nice to see, because this is the first time, again, as I've said multiple times, that we've seen Robin basically, people calling for Robin to come help them, when in the past she's basically been that sort of precious, really important character that needs to be protected at all costs. Here she's able to play the White Knight role. So that was good to see. Also, I was almost, when I read the chapter, the really demonic face that she had on and everything like that, I was almost going to say, this feels like old school Robin, but then I thought about it, and Robin actually, this isn't even old school Robin. Old school Robin was more, I would say, much more cool, calm, stoic. This is more, this is demonic, I guess, kind of into it, energized Robin that I don't think we've really seen either. I think the only other time I can kind of remember Robin having this sort of expression was, I want to say Punk Hazard, when it was a funny gag moment. The Strides are trying to... Luffy, Robin, Zoro, and Usopp are trying to cross the river, and they see Brownbeard and his crew, and they've all got nice coats, and they're basically like, we're going to take those coats. That was the last time I remember Robin having this sort of expression. So it's not even common for her across the series, but it was cool to see here. And then obviously the flip side of that, seeing her give, a cute little wink basically to Sanji at the end of the interaction, like, I'll take care of this, or thanks for relying on me, right? Brook is in this fight too, which I think is great, because I do think it's a little much that... Well, I don't know, it's hard to say because we haven't seen that much of the Tobiropo actually, like, fighting and mashed up against the Strahd so far, but, with the hype that the Tobiropo had... The fact that, X-Drake, for example, is a Tobiropo, that kind of gives us an idea of what that sort of standard is. We know Jinbei, who's a very strong character, is fighting Who's Who, things like that. Just based on those factors, I would be a little surprised if Robin was able to just take a Tobiropo down by herself, but having Brook in the mix as well, I think is just perfect. These two are characters who are, like, people talk about how Robin doesn't get fights throughout the series. Brooke literally never gets fights throughout the series. Literally does not get a fight. Like, any sort of long, extended, full chapter fight has never happened for Brooke, unless you count him fighting Ryuma, which I personally don't. I'm not talking about losses here. I'm saying, like, Brooke has literally never had a full fight in this entire series. So these are two characters who desperately need that. It's good to see that they're going to get it here. Robin versus Yama was the last time that we saw her get, a full chapter sort of fight, but I would count this as probably her first serious fight, and because in that fight she wasn't really pushed ever. Because Robin, again, with her ability, it's kind of binary. Either she can beat the person immediately or she can't. I think Black Maria poses an interesting challenge because, she's a zone user, so her form kind of changes. She uses webs and things like that, which could get in the way of Robin growing limbs. It could wrap her up in certain ways, but then Robin has to use her ability to get out. Brooke obviously makes a good combo for that. I hope he doesn't make it too easy with being able to freeze the threads and everything like that, but I'm sure that Black Maria's physical fighting and everything like that balances that out. So this is great. Two characters who have desperately needed fights, teaming up. I think Black Maria's form looks really cool. Really sick from what we saw from the back. It does look like she's possibly going to be fighting topless this entire time, so, I know where Oda's mind was this entire chapter, because then we also have that Momo scene, which was, an entirely unnecessary gag moment. It was so quick. It was just like, we need to hide Momo, and then Yamato's like, alright, get inside my, what do you even call it? Get inside my vest. I don't know what the hell Yamato wears. And then Momo's obviously gonna love it, because we know the type of character that Momo is, so Momo's obviously gonna love it. We're gonna see him with a nosebleed, I imagine, next chapter, the chapter after that. So I know where Oda's mind was this chapter, but it's gonna be kind of crazy if Black Maria is just gonna be fighting topless this entire fight. But from the back, her like full, I guess, combat form or whatever, it looks really cool. I think that just elevated her design among the Tobiroppo a couple notches. I don't know where. Let's see everybody else's transformations before we kind of say, okay, who's got the coolest design and everything. But I would right now put her above. I'd just put her behind Who's Who, I think, at the moment, in terms of what I like in terms of Tobiroppo's designs, because that design, at least from the back, looks amazing. So beyond all that, just the missing little threads, we've got Jack and I guess whatever is going to happen with Sanji. So Jack is back in the mix. His motivation is that he wants to go prevent the, red scabbards from getting back into the action. So Jack, who is injured, is going back to, I guess, face off against the red scabbards who were injured. On his mind, it's Inuarashi Nekomamushi. Don't know how I feel about this, because Jack is clearly heavily injured, so is he going to be fighting? Is he going downstairs to fight against the scabbards, and it's going to be, I don't know, injured? We're going to see injured Jack versus injured Inuarashi Nekomamushi. I guess that makes it more, I guess that gives us the fight that we didn't get to see up on the rooftop. That makes sense to me, I suppose, but at the same time, it also feels a little bit like we've checked that off. I don't know, I feel like the hype behind Jack as a whole has kind of died down, so this feels like not as interesting of a confrontation that we want to see at this moment in time. But it's interesting that he's back in the fray. Oda clearly has some plan for him. The flip side is, he's on the 3rd floor. Is there any chance that he runs into Sanji or anything like that? Because the one thing with Sanji is that Sanji is somewhat injured at the moment. It's hard to tell how much Oda is going to play up Sanji's injuries from the Black Maria situation. To me, it looked like he was pretty beat up, but it's One Piece. Oda can kind of just hand wave that away and just, it's mostly just going to be perfectly normal Sanji walking around next chapter. So we'll see if Oda writes him with a bit of a limp or a bit stiff or, I don't know, something like that. I would prefer that Sanji's still in perfectly good fighting shape. I would really dislike if what it came down to was Sanji versus Jack, and Sanji's, injured and Jack is injured, and it's just a weird handicapped sort of fight. I generally prefer these long, drawn-out fights to be between when the characters are somewhat fresh. But we'll see. There's also Marco who could do a quick heal for Sanji if that became the case, especially if Sanji were to step in and help Marco against King and Queen. Marco, it looked like, was fighting King basically one-on-one, but Queen was nowhere to be seen, so not really, or at least I did not notice Queen this chapter. Maybe you guys did. I might have just totally missed Queen. But I do believe that Queen is still Sanji's matchup that's set, so hopefully Sanji gets a quick heal from Marco, or maybe it's not necessary, I don't know. But I would just personally not like to see Sanji versus Jack, just because of the state that Jack is currently in. Jack versus the Scabbard seems possible, but it's really hard to tell what Oda is going to do with Jack's character at the moment. Besides that, I think we just have to wait till next week to see if we end up getting back to the rooftop, because it looks like most of the matchups are pretty much set. Chopper is the only Straw Hat who is yet to get a counterpart face-off. Well, no, Sanji, of course, at the moment, but Sanji, it seems like pretty clearly whoever he's being distributed to, whether it's Jack, whether it's Queen, whether it's the rooftop, that's going to be set, I suppose, in the next chapter or two. Chopper is the big question mark in that we have no clue as to who Chopper might fight. There's no way Chopper fights Jack. That's just impossible. I just had this weird thought. That just makes no sense. But Chopper maybe versus the remaining numbers, Monster versus Monster. I think that's a possibility. But aside from that, all of the Straw Hats matchups are like very, very close to being set. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens if in the next 1 to 2 chapters we kind of get that cleared up and out of the way, and then hopefully back to the rooftop. Or maybe Oda wants to do a thing where he has all of the Straw Hat matchups play out and then takes us back to the rooftop, and then hopefully some more Straw Hats who have cleared up their fights get to go up to the top. So let's wait and see, but that's all for this. I will talk to you all next week.